kept trying to hold on. You begged for a sign and you got silence. You thought it was love, but it broke you more than it built you. Now you're left wondering if God is the one who pulled it apart to protect you from what you couldn't see. Let's talk about the ways God sets you free from what was never meant. Sometimes what you wanted the most was the very thing keeping you bound. You kept praying for it to work, but all it did was drain you. God doesn't always answer your prayers with a yes. Sometimes He answers by removing what could have ruined you. You saw potential, but God saw the full picture. And because He loves you, He didn't let you settle in a place that couldn't carry your future. It's not punishment, it's protection. When something starts falling apart, no matter how much effort you give, it might be God's mercy, not misfortune. He lets it break so you won't have to. And in the process, He sets your heart free from the things that were never going to help you grow. 1, He removes your peace about it. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also you were called in one body, and be thankful. You didn't recognize it at first. You were too busy trying to make it work to notice what you were losing in the process. You kept brushing it off as a bad day, a hard season, or just stress. But God wasn't letting you stay comfortable in what wasn't good for you. You used to laugh more. You used to sleep better. You used to feel God's presence more clearly before they came into your life. Now you're restless, overthinking everything, questioning what's wrong with you. But it's not that something's wrong with you, it's that something's wrong with what you're tied to. God began to remove your peace because He knew you wouldn't walk away while you still felt safe. So He allowed the atmosphere to shift. You no longer felt calm after the conversations. You started feeling spiritually distant after spending time with them. You couldn't relax even when everything seemed fine on the surface. That was Him speaking through your nervous system, not your imagination. You begged God for clarity, but He answered with discomfort. You asked for confirmation, but He sent you confusion. Not to torment you, but to get your attention. God's peace is a guide, and when it disappears, it means He's redirecting you. You kept trying to force something to work while losing yourself silently. And God loves you too much to let you keep shrinking in a space He didn't send you to. He knows peace can't survive where purpose is suffocating. That's why He withdrew His peace, so you could recognize what your heart refused to admit. You thought the tension would pass, but it only grew stronger. You stopped hearing Him the way you used to, and still you stayed, until one day, the silence got louder than your desire to hold on. That wasn't weakness. That was your wake-up call. God removed your peace so He could rescue your soul. 2, He closes doors you weren't brave enough to close. He who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. You kept giving it another chance. You convinced yourself that love meant holding on, even when it hurt. You told yourself that if you prayed hard enough, things would change. But the more you tried to fix it, the more it kept falling apart. You weren't weak. You were loyal. You gave everything you could until there was nothing left but disappointment. And even then, you stayed longer than you should have. God watched you carry what was never your responsibility. He saw the emotional toll it was taking on you when no one else did. He heard your silent prayers when you were too tired to say the words out loud. You asked for healing, and instead, He gave you separation. Not to punish you, but to protect what He placed inside of you. You were never meant to carry something that was slowly draining your strength. So God stepped in. He closed the door that you were too afraid to close on your own. He let it break so you could stop bending. He allowed the silence, the space, and the distance so you could breathe again. You thought it was rejection, but it was His rescue. Because if He didn't shut it completely, you would have kept reopening it out of habit. And He knew that staying connected to it was costing you your future. Sometimes God doesn't wait for your permission to protect you. He just closes it because He knows you're not ready to. And though it feels like loss, it's actually divine release. You didn't fail. You didn't lose. You were freed. God shut it down so you could stop shrinking for love that wasn't from Him. That door didn't slam because you were unworthy. It closed because you were called to more, and what he closes, no one can reopen. 3. He exposes what you tried to ignore. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. You knew something wasn't right, but you didn't want to believe it. So you looked the other way, hoping things would fix themselves with time. You gave the benefit of the doubt until you had no more doubts left. Your heart tried to protect what your spirit was already disturbed by, and every time something felt off, you told yourself not to overthink it. But God loved you too much to let you stay blind to what was harming you, so he pulled back the curtain and let the truth come out. He started letting little things surface, just enough to get your attention. You saw messages, you noticed patterns, you felt the shift. It didn't happen all at once. God revealed it piece by piece so your heart could catch up with reality. You weren't being punished, you were being protected. You prayed for truth and clarity, and he honored it, even though it hurt. You saw the version of them they tried to hide, and it wrecked your trust. But God was showing you what he had already seen all along. He exposed what you were trying to explain away. He revealed what you would have spent years tolerating if he hadn't intervened. You cried over the truth, but the lie would have destroyed you more. He knew you were too faithful to walk away without reason, so he gave you a reason you couldn't unsee. Not to break you, but to wake you up. You thought you could handle it quietly, but he brought it out loud. Not to embarrass you, but to release you from the performance. You weren't imagining the distance. You weren't being too sensitive. God was opening your eyes because it was time to stop calling dysfunction love. It wasn't exposure to hurt you, it was exposure to heal you. And now that you see clearly, you can no longer settle for what broke you in secret. God revealed it so you could finally walk away with truth, not confusion. He makes you uncomfortable in that situation. Arise and depart, for this is not your rest. Because it is defiled, it shall destroy, yes, with utter destruction. You kept trying to adjust. You lowered your voice, your needs, and your standards just to keep the peace. But no matter what you did, you still felt out of place. You couldn't fully relax, even in moments that should have been safe. You kept feeling like you were walking on eggshells just to avoid another conflict. And every time you thought you'd finally found your rhythm, something shifted again. God was using the discomfort to let you know, this isn't your home. Not every connection is meant to feel like a fit. You weren't created to constantly overthink your every move. You weren't meant to be drained just by showing up. That pressure in your chest, that heaviness after conversations, that's not your imagination. That's spiritual resistance. God will let everything around you become tight and unfamiliar when you're settling in a place that can't carry your calling. He won't let you feel peace in a space he didn't assign to you. You keep trying to fix the symptoms, but he's trying to remove the root. Because if it's from God, it won't come with consistent emotional exhaustion. You've mistaken your discomfort for personal failure. But the truth is, God has been making you uncomfortable so you don't get comfortable where you're not supposed to stay. It's not that you're broken, it's that your spirit is responding to what's not aligned. He knows if things stay calm, you'll settle. So he lets the tension build until it's undeniable, not to punish you, but to prepare you to move. You tried to make it work because your heart is loyal, but your soul knows it doesn't belong there anymore. That constant anxiety, the silent resentment, the way you flinch at small things, God sees all of it. You're not overreacting. You're spiritually suffocating in a place God is trying to move you from. He'll disrupt your comfort to save your calling. He'll disturb your rhythm to set you free from the wrong routine. When God removes comfort, it's because he's preparing something more stable. You weren't designed to stay stuck in what you had to force to feel okay in. Your discomfort isn't a failure, it's the first sign of your release. God will never leave you stuck in something that's keeping you from the life he's calling you to. When he removes what was never meant, he replaces it with peace, clarity, and a deeper strength within you. If the content inspired you, please like, comment, and subscribe to Pure Inspirational. Be blessed.